Good morning, champions. So excited to be sharing my Monday morning with you. I've got some fun stuff to talk about today. And the question is, how do you get into motion? You see, today our topic is related to our word of the month, which is launch. And I've got the definition for launch here. I always like to check that out. And I was actually surprised. Okay, so one meaning is to start or to set, which I was good with that. But the meaning that I found most prevalent, good morning, who's ever watching, please make sure to let me know in the comments that you're here. The definition for launch, our word of the month, is to set a boat in motion by pushing it or allowing it to roll into the water. Now, when I read this, I was like, well, that wasn't really what I was thinking when I picked the word launch. I wasn't thinking about boats, right? I'm on this whole nature thing. Well, water is nature. And then I recognized that it's to throw forward as well, the motion, and it's both a verb and a noun. The noun for launch is an event. And so some of you know I launched the OOLA Life Academy starting last week. And so launch is the key word for this month. Now, if you are watching live right now, go ahead and let me know, #live. Remember, when you're on StreamYard, you have to put your name first so that I can tell that you are on. I appreciate that. In fact, let me go ahead and set us up for other people to watch in Facebook so it can be found. Love that about Facebook, that it gives me that opportunity to pop in and let you all know what's going on. And I am going to pin it to featured. Awesome. When you say who's in, please let me know where you're from. It's important because we are a global community. And when I go through the list of where we are all from, I think the last time I counted, it was about 50 countries that are represented in our Empowering Champions group. And wow, how cool is that? You see, my name is Coach Tina, and I am a certified OOLA life coach. If you don't know about OOLA, love to share that with you. It is a framework that has been amazing for me. And then the second thing that I have done is started the Empowering Champions group. Just this last week, we grew to 1,000 members. We hit a milestone that has been so exciting to watch. And I am also a certified course developer, so that's exciting. And this week, we are having our World Summit for mastermind.com. So I am an active participant in that this week as well. Lots going on in my life. I'm sure there's a lot going on in your life as well. But today we're going to talk on 3 ways to launch your next project. Now, your project and my project might be totally different, and that's perfectly fine because the steps are the same. But we're going to use my boat theme, my launch, because I started thinking about things and I thought, this is going to be an interesting way to bring this concept in. So concept number 1, the first way to launch your next project is to see if it floats. Now, many of us have seen boats out of water. They look wonderful when they're out there on the ocean. But have you ever thought about how if you have a boat out of water, it's like a great idea, but it needs to be out there. And there's a transition period between the boat on the ramp and the boat in the water. Now, if you think of the idea as a seed, the seed itself, like we can have that pack of seeds that sits on our shelf for a while, and you're supposed to plant them right away, but those seeds lie dormant until they're activated by both water and sunshine, or putting them in dirt makes that moist environment. Everything needs to be just right for that seed to get started. Same thing with the boat. The boat is there and it's beautiful, but you got to put it in the water to have the full effect. there is an action that starts the process. So you can look at your lovely boat, but until you put it on the water, you're not going to know if it floats or not. So when we take that to our ideas or to our projects, sometimes we have these really great ideas or visions in our head, and we're wondering how to get them to market. We need to test them. We need to put something out there and see if it floats. I'm working with a mentor right now whose big thing is have people raise their hand. When I talk about topics, it may not be of interest to you. That's perfectly fine. But I need to know the 5, 10, 20, 100 people that are interested in the topic. And when I hit a topic that's of interest to everybody, I can do some stuff on it and see if I can take it to the next level, if I can launch it to another place, if I can use it for momentum on my next project, right? Now, the second item is going to be called Don't Rock the Boat. But I'm going to explain it in the context of why I picked this topic. Because when we were on our trip in Canada, had an absolutely amazing time. But one of the things that we did, like we drove. So we flew to Seattle, got to see my daughter in Sequim, Washington, which was amazing. She'd moved there in February, so I hadn't seen her for 6 months. And I got to see my baby girl, got to see where she lives. She's in this beautiful, beautiful location. And then we took a ferry to Vancouver Island, got to experience a little bit of Vancouver Island, and then took the ferry from Vancouver Island to a place called Horseshoe Bay, just north of Vancouver. And then we headed north into Canada to see my parents. And when we were up there, we finally arrived. So this was a long drive. We had to spend the night one night and get up there. It was, I think it was a 12.5 hour drive from Horseshoe Bay. So when we got to the hotel in Prince George, in the morning we got up and we got there at about noon, had a quick lunch. And then my dad said to Chris, my husband, hey, I've been wanting to get the boat. He has a little motorboat into the river. They are on waterfront property. And I need a second person to help because they tried it and they couldn't get it on before. So we got the four-wheeler, it's hooked up to the four-wheeler, and he pushes it backwards, right? Or it must have been to the truck, pushed it back into the water. But there wasn't enough room at the end of it wasn't a ramp. It was just a side of the river. And they needed to get it positioned just right and angle things. And they really had to work hard. And then once they got in, they had to get some weight on the back of the boat to make it slip in far enough into the water. And there was all these complications and things that needed to happen. So it was fascinating to watch and to just marvel at my dad at 77, being able to jump around, jump in the boat, jump in the water, get on the four-wheeler. My stepmom at 80, she's almost 82, was driving the farm truck and doing stuff. I mean, they are just amazing. But there was a point at which we finally got it into the water. They got excited. They took it out a little bit. And then later we got to go on it. But getting into the boat on the water was a different experience, right? Like you have to teeter out there and kind of you're dangling your leg over. And there's this moment where you're like, am I going to make it into the boat or not? Now, that was a big boat that was stable, and we had people there helping us and so on. That was, I want to say, easy. Now, take that to a project, right? It's messy. Sometimes you got to get in the mud a little bit. You got to get wet when you're launching your boat. When you're putting your project out there, it's not going to be necessarily the easiest thing you've ever done. Now, they also have a little lake. And so later in that time period, we went out on the lake, and it's this beautiful, serene, very gentle water. And we had a canoe, 2 canoes, and they went in one canoe and we went in the other canoe, and we had a dock. So we were able to walk out onto the very not stable dock, but floating dock, right? And then the canoe was right there. But there's that moment when you step into the canoe where you're thrown off a little bit, and you have to stabilize, hang on to something solid, get into the right place. And I just, as I worked to launch our community's next step, which is the Ooh Life Academy, I was feeling very much like that person in that rocking boat. I didn't want to tip it over, and I wanted to get out there though. I wanted to be on the water, enjoying the experience, which it is totally beautiful out there on that lake. The fear of tipping the boat was less than the desire to get out there on that beautiful water and see what was available. And so all of this struggle was totally worth the effort. And one of the things that I noticed when I was out there on the river and even along the lake was this beautiful, lush growth all around the water, right? I see someone is on this morning. I want to thank you for watching, and to let me know that if you put a comment in, let me know that you're watching. Tell me where you're from. Would love to hear that. But when I was out there on the lake and on the river, I was reminded of a scripture that was so, it came to mind, and it reminded me of when we went out on the river. So there, my dad has this riverfront property, but the river has grown up all around it, all this beautiful, lush trees and brush and just beautiful greenery. So when we went out on the boat and we looked up at the banks, just gorgeous, gorgeous, but not a lot of anything else. Like there weren't boat ramps. This is a wild Canadian river, right? The trout and the salmon spawn in this river. So it's gorgeous. The Buckley is what it's called. And here's the scripture. I wanted to share that because I just was so impressed with this concept, because this is what it reminded me of. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. The tree planted by the water. That's what made me think about this. So the tree planted by the water does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. And so that's from Jeremiah 17:7-8. And the bear fruit and the water, it just reminds me of, we've got to get into the water. We've got to be near the thing that gets us to our project. It can't be something that's just in the distance. We've got to immerse ourselves in it, and we've got to stay with it. And we will find that lush green growth in the water. So that was point number 2. And the third one is to pull up your anchor. Now, neither of the boats that I went on technically had anchors, but once you get your boat on the water, you either got to keep it there because it could have floated down the river, or you have to start rowing it, or you have to get that motor going. So when you are wanting to launch your project, you have got to find the momentum to keep going. Pull up that anchor, that thing that is holding you in place, and allow yourself to break through, whether it's with a motorized way or with your just sheer power of rowing forward. And there's a lot of fear that comes into that, right? That's why some people don't get on the boat. They're just realizing that it's so hard that they don't want to be a part of it. So I see you're watching this morning. Thank you so much. Go ahead and put a comment into the feed and let me know that you're here and where you're coming from. You can just put your name, because when I'm on StreamYard, I can't always see who's here. And then where you're from will always give us some good information, since we have such a global community. The topic that we're talking on today is how do you get in motion? And we have been covering the 3 ways to launch your next project. And so this last one is pull up your anchor. And it reminded me of a story from my uncle, or with my uncle, when I was about 12 or 13. The family had a ski boat, And we were all camping together, and we went into one of the lakes in Oregon, Washington, Tri-Cities area. And when we were there, my uncle said to me, "Would you like to drive the boat?" Well, I was 12 or 13. I was terrified. I'd never done anything. I hadn't driving experience, and he's putting me in this boat with, we got some of our family members in there. And so I stand up and I'm holding the steering wheel and I'm looking forward. And as we move forward, it's getting a little bit easier. I'm thinking, okay, I can do this. But then up ahead, I see a bridge. And the bridge has these pillars that come down, and they're really close together in my mind. And so I turned to my uncle and I said, "Okay, I'm doing this. But when we get to that bridge, you have got to take over because I can't drive through those pillars." And he was like, "No, I'm not taking over. You have got to do it. You are going to take us through those pillars." And I was like, I can't do it. And I was so afraid. And I watched and we got closer, and I got so much more terror, right? And then I noticed something. Looked beyond the fear and noticed that the closer we got to the bridge, the farther apart the pillars were moving. Now, this was an illusion, right? From far away, the pillars looked close together, but the closer I got, the bigger the opening was and the easier it was to go through. So I'm happy to report I made it through the pillars that were probably a mile apart. It just felt like they were so close together. Went underneath, turned to my uncle, and I said, I did it. This was so great. And he said, "Yes, I knew you could. Now turn around." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, we didn't need to go this far. It's just because you were so afraid, I had to push you to let you know that you could do it." What a great lesson, right? I have had many experiences in my life where I've had that fear that has made me think that I couldn't do something. But when you have someone that pushes you, that helps you, that little extra step that gives you the support you need to get beyond the fear, as I like to say, that's when the magic happens, right? Reminds me again of a faith story of walking on water, right? There was faith required to do what feels like it's impossible. So don't give up faith. Faith is one of the ULA Fs that we cherish because it has such power behind it. So this week, whatever you do, whatever project you're working on, if you need help, reach out, get support. Don't do it all on your own. Get or lean on this community for support because that's what we're here for. If you would like information on taking what we have in our community to a more intimate, tight circle, we have a area, the Academy, that is going to be for those of us that are ready for change and want to work on goals that we're getting ready to get through for the end of this year. We don't want to wake up on January 1st of 2023 and realize that this is another year that we are going to write down our goals and then maybe not accomplish them. Instead, we want to get all of our goals for 2022 completed or on track so that we can rock 2023 without a doubt, everything on our mind. Now, the other thing I have going on this week is Project Next's Cumulates in the World Summit. So the Time to Thrive challenge that Dean Graziosi did earlier in August, it has been 6 weeks. Now his big annual conference, 3-day conference, is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll be attending that, grabbing all kinds of new nuggets for our group, stories, thought processes, and any of you that are interested in course creation, this is where I glean a lot of my expertise, and I'm happy to share everything that goes on. So really looking forward to having that to work with you guys on. Hope you have a really blessed week. I hope that you'll be able to move forward with any project that you work on this week. And I look forward to talking to you soon.